Welcome back to the Madeline Knit Along. I'm Janica York Carter and this is section 7. I started a new swatch today because this pattern repeat is a little bit longer than some of the previous ones, and I wanted to make sure I had enough stitches across the front to show you the full repeat. I've done a few stitches of garter stitch, just a few garter ridge rows, much like you would between each section. And pattern 7 actually begins in reverse stockinette. The first 3 rows are backwards, essentially. You're going to do your increase shaping at the end, of course, but instead of knitting across, you're going to purl across the right side row, knit across the wrong side row, and then purl row 3 across. Our real shaping begins, our real pattern repeat starts beginning on the wrong side row on row 4. So you can see when I flip it over that it actually looks like stockinette on this side. This is going to create a purl ridge on the front, a 3-row purl ridge. And as I knit along, you'll see better what that's going to do. So on our wrong side rows, we start with a purl 1 and a knit 1. That part doesn't change. And to set up this stitch, we're going to purl the first 3, 2, 3. Now we'll begin our actual pattern repeat. With your yarn in front so that it's on the wrong side of the work, you are going to slip 2 stitches purlwise, and then you will purl 6 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that's the repeat. Purl, you slip 2 stitches purlwise, and then purl 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slip 2 stitches purlwise and purl 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this repeat ends in, you actually sort of end the repeat here after doing 2 more purl stitches. That leaves you 5 stitches at the end. You're going to purl those last stitches, and then if you want to have a garter edge, knit the last 2. I haven't been consistent on my edge stitches on that side. Sometimes I've had them as gartered and sometimes not. If you prefer to have them garter throughout, always just knit your last 2 stitches on your wrong side row. Now on the right side row, you'll still do your shaping. Knit 1, knit in front and back, and now we're going to knit the first 3 stitches, and we're going to slip those same 2 stitches, this time with the yarn in the back. We always, on this pattern, we want our yarn in on the wrong side when we slip our stitches. So we're going to slip these same 2 stitches. These same 2 stitches are going to get quite long because we're going to do this essentially for 6 rows. So knit the next 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slip the next 2. You're still slipping as if to purl. That keeps your stitches straight. And then knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slip those 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Slipping those 2 stitches, and now knitting to the last 3 stitches so that you can do your side shaping of knit 2 together and knit the last 1. We're essentially going to do the same thing The only change is how many stitches until we get to our slip stitches. So purl the first stitch, knit the next stitch, and then purl every stitch, 1, 2, until you get to your slip stitches. You'll be able to see them now. You've got the carried over yarn sort of cradling them, so you'll know that it's those two. So slip those 2 purlwise and continue purling 6. You're going to do this for several rows, so I will pause the camera now and finish up those rows so that you can see how this develops. There's the 6th, and there's our 2 slip stitch, and how this is going to create a pattern on the front side, on your right side rows. So now I've done several rows where we have slipped the same 2 stitches and done essentially stockinette on the front side. And you can see that what's happening is we're sort of getting a little bit of a scallop. It's sort of scooping up because these 2 stitches are from several rows back now. So they're pulling the fabric up here. Now we'll somewhat release those on row 11, where we're going to go back to doing reverse stockinette. So side shaping again is knit 1 and then knit in the front and in the back. And now we're going to purl all the stitches across. That includes the slipped stitches, so they'll finally get a little bit of relief. I think they feel a little tense at this point. They're drawn up, and this will help bring them a little bit down. This is going to create a sort of lattice work, or maybe a sort of a cobblestone pocket. It's almost like, well, my great-grandmother had a house that was built in a time when it was fashionable to have the mortar sticking out farther than the bricks, so that you actually noticed the pattern of the mortar more than you noticed the pattern of the brick. It certainly wasn't a fancy house, and in my childhood sensibilities, it felt like the mortar needed to be cleaned up and scraped off, but I've started to appreciate that that was a design choice at the time, and this pattern actually somewhat emulates that. Now when we get to our last 3 stitches, we will knit 2 together and knit the last stitch. Then on the wrong side row, we will again do our purl stitch and our knit stitch to start. And since we're doing reverse stockinette, we can simply knit all the way across this row. When we do that, we'll start to see the pattern that is forming from all of those slip stitches and the reverse stockinette. So let me just get us to that end, because I really want you to be able to see how this develops. The way the pattern is written, once again, we've done the math so that you'll know the start and end points, and also stagger the slip stitches to, again, get that brick and mortar appearance. Nearly there. Oops, I got my yarn caught. Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so now when we flip it over and start to smooth it out, you can see that we're now getting a bit of a top cap to that bottom one. I'll knit a few more rows so that you can see the full effect. I've completed a few more rows so that you can see how your straight rows of reverse stockinette actually start to get a little bit of a wiggle going on because of the slipped stitches. These slip stitches tend to pull this row down. These slip stitches tend to pull it up a little bit. As you work it, you'll get this nice, rich, deep texture. It will flatten out some when you block the finished piece, which will give it a little bit more elongated shape, which I actually like. It's a little bit difficult to do it here because the needle is so short, but you could sort of get an idea as you do like that. I really like the texture of this stitch. I think it would make an absolutely gorgeous sweater, and I might have to consider doing that at some point. But I hope that you enjoy this stitch in section 7, and I look forward to showing you section 8.